The real story of global culinary tradition can be found in the kitchens of everyday women cooking for their families. So much so that I wrote a book about it, featuring grandmothers from different African countries sharing traditional recipes from their homeland. Now I want to share my take on some of these classic African dishes for you to enjoy. Welcome to Hawa at Home. Hi everyone, I'm Hawa Hassan, and today I'm going to be making one of my favorite meals. I'm going to be making Beef Suqaar, which is a Somali stir-fry. It's my mother's recipe. It's in my cookbook in Bibi's kitchen. This dish is traditionally made with goat. I'm not gonna make it with goat today. I'm gonna go ahead and use what I have at home. We have this thing in Somalia called sheko, which means like there's a lot of conversation happening, and sheko usually takes place over tea. So for me, commotion feels like home. So I'm looking for maybe a chuck steak to cut up into small chunks to put in my stew, but also the smell of hawaj, the smell of cinnamon, the smell of angelo burning in the morning, which is our anjera. And this is a beef chuck steak. What makes it really special is how fast it comes together. It's under 10 ingredients and can be done in less than 20 minutes. Literally what we're doing, we're cutting small chunks of beef into little cubes. This is a dish that is near and dear to my heart. I grew up eating it. It's my mother's favorite. All of my sisters learned it from our mother. With beef suqaar, you want to be sure that you buy your own beef. You'll often see pre-cut stew meat. You don't want to use that. You want to get your own cut so that you can make sure everything is cut in the same size so that it cooks evenly. I'm using about 1.5 pounds, but I'll take 2 pounds. The great thing about going to the butcher to get your meat is that you can, first of all, select your meat, and then you can customize it to yourself. So I love to come here. I love to be able to get a whole cut of a steak and then do the chunks myself. And so I love doing that on my own. I love coming here for the New Zealand lamb. Also, you know how fresh the meat is as opposed to the supermarket. So I really encourage, if you've got a great butcher by you, make friends with the guys and the gals there. Turn this to high-medium heat. Now that I've got my heat on, I'm just gonna get some canola oil. I'll use about 2 tablespoons. You can tell our oil is hot and our skillet is ready. I'll throw in our beef. I'm just gonna give it a large pinch of salt. I wanna make sure that it browns evenly. I'm gonna go ahead and get my yellow onion. I'm using a yellow onion again because this is what this dish calls for. Somalis, they have a whole thing about not trusting people who don't cook with red onion. It's just sweeter in flavor. This is my mother's recipe, and I don't take any liberties with her stuff. Otherwise, I won't hear the end. In Somali culture, we say paradise is at the feet of our mom. What she says goes, and she said a yellow onion. So here we are. I'm gonna give this a chop, almost the same size as my meat. All right. Bring this all together. So I wanna let this come together until my onions begin to soften. In the meantime, I've got some carrots that are peeled. I cook with a ton of carrots, and so carrots are a staple in my refrigerator. So many different ways you can cook carrots, and an easy way to add some vegetables to your cooking. I'm gonna cut them into coin-sized pieces. This will help the carrots cook fast and evenly. And you know what? Vegetables can vary, so use one that you like, cut them in the same size so that they cook evenly. This is a traditional Somali recipe. Every family has their own version of beef suqaar. A lot of Somalis use, flavors of the Indian Ocean, so we use a ton of turmeric in our cooking, lots of cinnamon, lots of cardamom. Here today we're using turmeric and cumin, but, there are some families that use a spice called hawaj, which consists of many warm and savory spices. Here's my favorite, hawaj. This is also another great place that has a hawaj that's pre-made and is really reflective of the one we use in Somalia. Somalia has the longest coast inland. We are heavily influenced by the Yemens, the Italians. We are really lucky in that we're right there on the Indian spice trade, so a lot of our food is reflective of that. You know, cardamom, cumin, cinnamon, cloves, turmeric. Those are all flavors that are heavy in our everyday foods. All right, give this a stir. My intentions are to not only showcase, but to teach people that cooking from the continent is really about your pantry, and everything you need is already there. Yeah, I think when I'm creating a recipe, I'm going for smell, I'm going for taste, and then I'm also going for tradition. And that comes from conversations with my mom. And so, you know, I have a recipe that I make called loho, which is Somali pancakes. And I make mine a bit more savory. It's literally like a crepe. And so I've made mine with onion, cloves, fenugreek, and some people would say that's not Somali, but it's my version of loho. All right, our onions are beginning to break down. The beef is almost completely brown. It's new, old, it's my memories, it's traditions from my family, and then it's an interpretation of the way I see the recipe. You can create recipes that are from your cultural background, but then you can tailor them for your audience and for your life. You want to be sure not to overcook your beef. This recipe really takes no time to cook, so just keep an eye on it. I'm throwing in my carrots. And carrots are a big part of our meals. I want my carrots to get a little tender, about 5 minutes or so. And then I'll add our seasoning. While this takes place, I'm gonna straighten up a little bit. And for good measure, I'm gonna use just a little bit more salt. Somalis are from the Horn of Africa, like myself, but we're on the Indian Ocean, which means we benefit from the spice trade. And today we'll see some of that show up in here. In the 90s, Somalia was experiencing a civil war, and my family, like most other families, fled to Nairobi in Kenya, where I spent 4 years, and then my family stayed for a long time. But in that, I was sent to Seattle with a family friend. For me, started then the cycle of having to figure it out and, you know, waiting on my family to come. And ultimately, my family settled in Oslo, in Norway, and so that's why I say home is wherever my mother is. I talk about the places I want to be and where it most feels like home to me, and it's always wherever she is. You know, as long as I'm close by and she's, you know, she's with me, that for me feels like home. Turmeric and cumin. So the turmeric is gonna give our suqaar a very bright, almost burnt orange, yellowish color, you'll see. I'm gonna cover this a bit so that it can get tender. In the meantime, I'm gonna get my green pepper and lime ready. Also, I'm not sure why, but bell peppers, green bell peppers are a big part of Somali cooking as well. It's like the salad of Somalia. Just gonna give these a very thin slice. These are the last things I throw in because I want them to be crunchy and not, you know, overcooked. Give it a little stir. Oh, that's it. It smells just like my mom's house. If you had to eat one dish for the rest of your life, what would it be? I don't know. Suqaar is definitely up there for me. That's for sure. Makes me incredibly happy. Researching Somalia for the cookbook was surprisingly easy, but very difficult to document because Somalis everywhere in the world are forever a moving piece. But I did learn a lot, you know. I learned that people make their Hawa just different than my family does. I learned that some people's best is different than ours. Could have solely focused on my lineage and my upbringing and my heritage and my origin story. But for me, it seemed I would be doing even myself a disservice if I didn't give myself the chance to sit at the feet of my elders, who are these women who are matriarchies, who hold, you know, the keys to family secrets, whether it be recipes or, you know, oral history. I was taught as a little girl, sitting in a kitchen with my mother and her mother and their friends, you know, the history of nomadic Somalis, the history of, you know, different tribes, the history of the religion, Islam religion, or Islamic religion. And so it was important for me to put myself in a position of a student, not to only preserve these stories, but to share them on a global level, and then to also preserve these recipes for us. There's the color I was talking about. I could tell that my carrots are beginning to get tender. Smells like my mother's kitchen. Somalis like to eat their heat on the side. We do not add it to our food. So it's up to the person how spicy they want their food. All right. Where in our neighboring countries like Eritrea and Ethiopia, the heat is already added into the food for you. I'm gonna do about 2 tablespoons of lime juice. Let me combine this together. Oh yeah. How beautiful is that? I'm gonna just go ahead and stir in a little cilantro, maybe my favorite herb. If you want to add a little bit of heat, you can chop some jalapenos and just throw it on there, or you can make yourself some best. I've made a bit of a mess, so before serving myself, I'm going to straighten up. I'll turn this off. We're just about ready. I don't know if I mentioned this, but my mother has 5 daughters and 5 boys, and this is her recipe. And for a very, very long time, I did not enjoy cooking because cooking for me was a chore. But now it's my favorite thing to do. It's my love language. It's how I say I love you to someone. I love asking people as soon as they walk into my house, have you eaten yet? It's like a little bit of something that I got from my mother, which I'm really grateful for. I really wanted to address the conversations that had been told about where I'd come from. I really wanted to have a bigger conversation about the continent of Africa through food, you know, about our similarities, about the spices we share, about the Indian Ocean. And the whole thing for me feels like one big circle, you know, all to really talk about Africa from longer table and shorter fences. I'm gonna put my suqaar on a bed of lettuce. I've got some here in the fridge. Often this is eaten with rice or Somali baris, which is a Somali pilaf rice, or it's eaten with greens just like this. The heat from the suqaar will wilt down my lettuce, so I'm not really worried about it. I enjoy the crunchiness of it. Let's see if it tastes like my mother's. Oh, yeah. The beef is so tender. There you have it. This is a Somali stir fry. It came together so quickly, under 10 ingredients. I couldn't wish for more. I think to say anything about one cuisine being monolithic is false. Just as Africa is not a country, neither are cuisines. It is really good.